In this video, we embark on a journey to uncover the resilience of African American families during the antebellum era. Explore how, even in the face of enslavement and systemic barriers, these families managed to cultivate a sense of community, preserve cultural traditions, and resist the oppressive structures of their time. Greetings and welcome. I'm Carolyn A. From gettingtotheroots.com, ready to empower you with tools, resources, and inspiration to craft a legacy that's uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore American history's key moments and integrate them into our family stories. We will learn how to celebrate these narratives through unforgettable family reunions and explore ways to broaden your storytelling through blogging and linking family members across distances. The stories of our ancestors are not just memories. They are calls to action, waiting to be told. Join us on this incredible journey. Together, let's uncover the stories that have shaped us, celebrate the diversity of our heritage, and ensure that the legacies of our ancestors are remembered and cherished forever. Let's dive in. What are the key characteristics of the antebellum period? The antebellum era in United States history is a pivotal period that stretches from the late 18th century to the eve of the Civil War in 1861. Territorial expansion, economic diversification, and significant social and political changes are all hallmarks of this era's rapid growth and transformation across the nation. It was a time when the country was defining its identity, grappling with issues of freedom, rights, and the very fabric of society. The antebellum period saw the United States expand westward, incorporating vast territories that would eventually shape the nation's geographical and cultural landscape. This era of expansion was fueled by the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, the annexation of Texas in 1845, and the acquisition of lands following the Mexican-American War. Such territorial growth brought prosperity, but also deepened the divisions between the northern and southern states, particularly over the issues of slavery and states' rights. The industrializing North, which moved toward a more diversified economy focused on manufacturing, commerce, and infrastructure, and the rural South, which remained largely dependent on slavery for its cotton-based economy, was in stark economic contrast during this time. These economic disparities contributed to the growing sectionalism that would eventually lead to the Civil War. If you find value in this video, please show your support by liking it, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. This aids in improving our visibility through YouTube's algorithm. Now, let's get back to our video. Why is the antebellum era significant in African American history? For African Americans, the antebellum era was a time of profound adversity and remarkable resilience. It was a period when slavery was entrenched in the Southern economy and social fabric, affecting millions of African American lives. Enslaved African Americans faced brutal conditions, yet they forged strong family ties, developed their own cultural practices, and resisted their bondage in various ways, from everyday acts of resistance to participation in slave revolts. The era also saw the rise of free African American communities, especially in the North, where free blacks navigated a precarious existence amid a society that was often hostile and discriminatory. Despite legal and social barriers, these communities established institutions such as schools, churches, and mutual aid societies, laying the groundwork for the abolitionist movement and the fight for civil rights. Moreover, the antebellum period was significant for the development of a distinctive African American identity. Amidst the harsh realities of slavery and discrimination, African Americans maintained and adapted elements of their African heritage, while also absorbing and influencing American culture. This era saw the emergence of African American voices in literature, music, and art, which expressed the pain, hope, and resilience of the Black experience in America. How were family structures organized among enslaved African Americans? The harsh realities of slavery had a significant impact on the complex and varied family structures of enslaved African Americans. Unlike the legally recognized and protected family units of white Americans, enslaved families had no legal status. This meant that family members could be separated at any time through sale or transfer by slave owners. Despite these conditions, enslaved people formed familial bonds, both biological and chosen, that were foundational to their existence and resistance. Enslaved families often lived in nuclear family units when possible, but these could be extended through kinship networks that included grandparents, aunts, uncles, and others who were not biologically related but considered family. Such extended families provided emotional support and played a crucial role in the survival and cultural continuity of enslaved people. What strategies did enslaved families use to maintain bonds despite separations? Enslaved African Americans developed various strategies to maintain family bonds despite the constant threat of separation. One common practice was the keeping of family books or memorizing family histories, which helped preserve family connections and histories across generations and distances. They also developed secret communication networks to share news about separated family members. Religious and community gatherings, though closely monitored or outright forbidden, also provided opportunities for maintaining family ties. Baptisms, funerals, and clandestine meetings in hush harbors or secluded areas allowed enslaved people to come together, fostering a sense of community and family unity. How did oral traditions and African heritage play a role in the family life of enslaved African Americans? Oral traditions played a pivotal role in the family life of enslaved African Americans, serving as a vehicle for the transmission of African heritage, moral values, and coping mechanisms. Storytelling, songs, and folk tales were integral to this process, blending African traditions with the realities of life in slavery. These narratives often included stories of resistance, survival, and hope, providing both comfort and inspiration to enslaved families. Spirituals and other forms of music also held special significance, functioning as a form of covert communication about escape plans or simply as a means to express sorrow, joy, and resistance. These oral traditions not only strengthened family and community bonds, but also helped preserve a sense of identity and dignity amidst the dehumanizing conditions of slavery. Enslaved families exhibited resistance and resilience in various forms, both subtle and overt. One of the most profound forms of resistance was the establishment and maintenance of family structures themselves, which defied the dehumanizing intent of slavery. By nurturing family ties, enslaved people affirmed their humanity and challenged the notion that they were mere property. Families also engaged in acts of resistance that ranged from work slowdowns and sabotage to escape attempts and participation in organized rebellions. Both free and enslaved African Americans supported the Underground Railroad, a system of covert routes and safe houses that demonstrated the community's effort to resist oppression and aid family members in escaping to freedom. Moreover, the act of educating oneself and one's children, despite prohibitions against slave literacy, was a significant form of resistance. Secretly teaching reading and writing within the family not only empowered enslaved individuals, but also equipped them with tools to challenge their status and advocate for their rights and the rights of their communities. Through these varied forms of resistance, enslaved African American families not only survived the brutality of slavery, but also laid the groundwork for the fight against slavery and civil rights. Their resilience in the face of systemic oppression highlights the strength of familial bonds and the human spirit's enduring quest for freedom and dignity. How did the Fugitive Slave Act impact the security of African American families? The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 had a profound and destabilizing impact on African American families, both free and enslaved. Part of the Compromise of 1850, this law mandated that escaped slaves could be captured in the North and returned to their enslavers in the South, and it imposed heavy penalties on anyone who assisted fugitive slaves. This legislation not only endangered the lives of escaped slaves, but also placed free black communities under constant threat of kidnappings and false accusations of being runaway slaves. The act disrupted the relative safety that the North had offered, forcing many African American families to flee further north to Canada to secure their freedom. The fear of separation and re-enslavement became a pervasive aspect of daily life, leading to an atmosphere of paranoia and insecurity that strained family bonds and community cohesion. Families often had to make the heartbreaking decision to separate, with some members moving to safer areas while others remained behind, risking capture and enslavement. What were the effects of laws governing manumission on family cohesion among African Americans? Manumission laws, which governed the freeing of enslaved individuals, varied significantly from state to state, and were subject to change, often reflecting the growing tensions over slavery in the United States. In some cases, these laws allowed for the gradual emancipation of enslaved people, which could lead to the slow disintegration of family units over time as members gained their freedom at different intervals. Moreover, manumission often came with stringent conditions, such as the requirement for freed individuals to leave the state or territory where they had been enslaved. This could force individuals to make the excruciating choice between remaining in slavery, to stay with their family, or accepting freedom and leaving their loved ones behind. Such conditions severely impacted the cohesion and stability of black families, tearing apart kinship networks that had been a source of strength and resilience. What role did the Black Church play in supporting African American families and communities? The Black Church emerged as a central institution for African American families during the Antebellum era, providing spiritual, emotional, and material support to communities affected by the harsh realities of slavery and discrimination. Churches served as safe havens where African Americans could gather to worship, socialize, and support one another in relative safety from the prying eyes of white society. Beyond its spiritual role, the Black Church played a significant part in the social and political life of African American communities. It was a place where families could come together to share information, organize assistance for those in need, and strategize about ways to resist oppression. Many Black churches were actively involved in the abolitionist movement, offering their premises as venues for meetings and serving as stations on the Underground Railroad. The church also played a crucial role in education and community development, often hosting schools for Black children who were barred from attending public schools. Through sermons, church-based schools, and community meetings, church leaders instilled a sense of hope, dignity, and resistance in the face of systemic racism and injustice. How did music, folklore, and religious practices shape the lives of Black families during the Antebellum era? Cultural expressions within African American families during the Antebellum era were rich and varied, serving as a vital means of preserving African heritage, fostering community bonds, and resisting the dehumanizing effects of slavery. Music, folklore, and religious practices played central roles in this cultural tapestry. Music was a particularly powerful form of expression, with spirituals, work songs, and field hollers serving multiple purposes. They were a source of comfort, a means to covertly communicate, and a form of resistance. These songs often contained coded messages related to escape plans or served to sustain hope and solidarity among enslaved individuals. Spirituals, deeply rooted in African American religious practices, also expressed deep spiritual longing and the quest for freedom, both earthly and divine. Folklore, including tales, proverbs, and legends, was another important aspect of cultural expression, often reflecting the wisdom, humor, and resilience of African American communities. These stories were passed down through generations, teaching moral lessons, offering critiques of slavery, and preserving the memory of African heritage. What impact did African cultural traditions have on American culture? The cultural contributions of African American families have left an indelible mark on American culture, enriching it with music, dance, language, and religious practices that have African roots. Genres such as jazz, blues, gospel, and later rock and roll and hip-hop can trace their origins back to the music and rhythms preserved and innovated by African American communities during the Antebellum period and beyond. Moreover, African American vernacular, storytelling traditions, cuisine, and religious expressions have significantly shaped American cultural identity, highlighting the complexity and depth of the nation's multicultural heritage. The persistence of African cultural traditions, adapted to the American context, underscores the resilience and creativity of African American communities in the face of adversity. Why is storytelling and oral history important in preserving the family histories of African Americans? Storytelling and oral history played critical roles in preserving family histories and communal knowledge among African American families. In an era when legal constraints made it difficult for enslaved and free blacks to record their histories in writing, oral traditions served as a vital means of passing down memories, values, and cultural identity from one generation to the next. These oral traditions not only preserved the stories of African ancestors and the experiences of slavery, but also instilled a sense of pride and belonging among African Americans. They served as living testimonies to the struggles, resilience, and achievements of previous generations, offering guidance and inspiration for the future. And that's a wrap for our exploration of Love Against Chains, Black families in the Antebellum era. If this video resonates with you, please show your support by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Thanks for watching and supporting us. Peace and love.